I deliver for Northside Slice in Maple Ridge, Ohio, a college town with 2 stoplights and 1 river that floods just enough to ruin spring. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the gas in my Civic and my landlord mostly friendly. Nights are a mix of frat houses and sleepy cul-de-sacs. You learn patterns. You learn which porches have loose boards and which customers tip like they're allergic to singles. 2 Fridays ago, the ticket printer screamed at 11:42 p.m. The order was weird on its face: 3 large Peps, extra onion, and a 2-liter cola to Riverside Court. Unit B, no gate code, no apartment number, just Unit B and a phone number. Yours, said Cass at the front, sliding the hot bags toward me. They paid online. $20 tip. Go be a hero, I checked the map. Riverside Court was a horseshoe of squat brick buildings near the river, built before anyone cared about floodplains. I'd been there plenty, but there was no Unit B on our system. Building letters, sure. Apartment numbers, sure. Unit B felt like someone's private joke. I called the number. It rang once, then a clipped male voice answered. Delivery? Yeah, just confirming the drop. What building number? Silence, and then, use the rear lot. There's a service hallway by the dumpsters. The door's propped. Bring it to Unit B. The what? Unit B, he repeated like I'd failed a quiz. You'll see the sign. Click. Cass raised an eyebrow. Creepshow? Let's not use that word, I said, stuffing napkins and red pepper packets into the bag. I get paid extra for after-midnight drama. The air outside had turned to a wet fleece blanket. Maple gnats orbited the streetlights. I took the river road past the shuttered bait shop and the old cannery skeleton, all angles and shadows, and turned into Riverside Court. The front lots were full. Music thumped from somewhere, but it was distant, like it wasn't sure it wanted to be heard. I circled around back, tires crackling over broken glass. There was a door by the dumpsters propped with a chunk of brick. A hand-lettered sign, warped from rain, read service. Fine. I killed the engine but left the headlights on and took the bags. Inside was not an actual hallway so much as a concrete throat. Bare bulb, utility pipes. That sour old building smell that lives in soaked drywall and never leaves. On the left, a door for electrical. On the right, another door painted the kind of brown that wishes it were red. Ahead, a hand-drawn arrow in Sharpie. Unit B, cute, I muttered. Haunted house font would have really sold it. I walked. The floor sloped downward slightly. Not enough to make you stumble, just enough to convince your brain that you were going somewhere it shouldn't. Voices bled through the pipes. TVs, a laugh, the rhythmic thump of someone's bass. Over it all was a hiss, like a distant radio that never quite tuned in. The next sign was stenciled on a cinder block wall. B, with an arrow pointing left. The corridor kinked. The temperature dropped. My phone buzzed. Northside Slice, dispatch, are you excellent? Cass texted. In the hall now, I wrote. Service entrance. Be right back. She sent a thumbs up and a pizza emoji. Ordinary. Comforting. I turned left and stopped. A metal door sat in a brick frame, lopsided. Masking tape crisscrossed the small square window. A label holder held a yellowed card that said Unit B in a typewriter font. Someone had hung a plastic doorbell button next to it with double-sided tape. Below, a note in neat block letters. Please leave food inside the threshold. Do not knock. Baby asleep. Cash tip in envelope. I looked for a peephole. Nothing. No light under the door either. The metal felt cold when I tapped it with my knuckle. Northside Slice, I called softly. Order for, The ticket didn't give a name. Just M. Carter. For Carter? My voice died in the concrete. Something brushed the other side of the door. Not a person. More like a soft drag. Fabric across metal. I stepped back before I knew I'd moved. Look, I'll just leave it. The door clicked. Not open, just the lock. A slow, deliberate flip of a thumb turn. Thanks, a voice whispered. It wasn't the clipped male voice. This one was breathy, as if it didn't want to waste air. Just a crack. Every warning PSA I'd ever heard started reciting itself. I balanced the bags in one hand and used the other to push the handle down and open it an inch. Stale air rolled out, damp like a flooded basement after a fan has been running for a day and given up. I couldn't see a room, just dark. Just that hiss getting louder. A hand slid into view through the crack. Pale, thin, nails chewed to the quick. It held out a small white envelope. Tip. The whisper said, "Thank you for coming so late." I took the envelope without really meaning to. For a heartbeat, the hand's skin brushed my wrist. It was cold enough to blister. I should put the pizzas inside, I said. Policy, silence. Then reluctantly, okay. I nudged the door wider. A foot, two. The beam from the hallway bulb was weak, but it got me enough to lay the bags down. I kept most of my weight outside the threshold. There was a landing immediately inside and a set of steps leading down. I saw the top of a newel post, a splintery banister, and the suggestion of space below. No apartment. A basement. The hiss was louder here. Not a radio. Water, maybe. Or air through a cracked valve. I'm going to set these right here, I said. You got plates? The breathy voice replied from somewhere below. We have plenty. A form moved at the bottom of the stairs, just beyond the limit of what my eyes wanted to focus on. Not a man. Not a woman. The impression of shoulders, of a head, of someone too still. Have a good night, I said, and retreated. The door swung as if nudged from inside. It clicked shut gently. Back in the hall, I breathed like I'd been underwater. My hands shook. I tucked the envelope into my hoodie pocket and headed for daylight. At the service door, my phone buzzed again. Cass, ETA. Leaving now, I typed. Weird drop, but all good. She replied with a single question mark, then another bubble. We just got a call from a guy named Miles Carter. He says sorry. He canceled earlier and nobody should be coming. Did you take that one? I stopped with my hand on the brick doorstop. The envelope suddenly felt like a stone in my pocket. You told me to go, I wrote. It was tipped and paid online. Cass took a long time to respond. When the dots finally appeared, they lasted for 10 full seconds. We didn't send it. That ticket number is from last month, remember Evan? The driver who quit out of nowhere? That was his last run. Same address, same tip amount, same name. Cold moved through me in a slow wave. I pulled the envelope out and opened it. Inside were 520s and a receipt. The ink had bled, but I could make out the date. 9/12, last month. I looked back down the hall. The Unit B door sat innocent in its frame. The hiss rose and fell like breathing. On the concrete by my sneaker was a wet footprint, as if someone had stepped there barefoot moments ago. Another followed half a step closer. They were pointed toward me. I backed outside. The night air was a shock, full of the river. I locked my car with a shaky thumb and got in. The headlights painted the propped service door in harsh white. The phone rang. Unknown caller, I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Same number. I took it this time. Because that's the sort of dumb instinct that gets you into basements. Hello? The clipped male voice from earlier. You left the door open? I didn't. You did, he said mildly. Someone could wander in. I looked. The service door was open wider than before. My headlights had probably pushed it. The light from the hall was a pale rectangle on concrete, and the hiss seemed to creep under it like fog. Not my building, I said. Call maintenance. Unit B doesn't have maintenance, he said. Not since the flood. What flood? 2003, he said. Like it was common knowledge. Like we were both old men shaking our heads at the river's stubborn will. Stairs went. The boiler room took on 6 feet. They sealed it up after that. No tenants, cheaper. There's a door, I said. I was just at it. He inhaled a hiss that matched the one I was hearing. You went down, didn't you? No. You should have, he said, almost rueful. They get angry when you only come to the threshold. The line went dead. I didn't wait to be haunted by a third ring. I jammed the car into gear and rolled. At the first stop sign, I finally looked at the receipt again. A second slip of paper was stuck to the back with humidity. Thin, like tracing paper. It was a missing person flyer. The face was familiar in the way any stranger's face becomes familiar once you've stared at it too long. Evan. Our old driver. The date on the flyer matched the date on the receipt. There was a handwritten note at the bottom in blue pen. If found, please return bag and shirts to Northside Slice. Shirts. I'd seen shirts. In the half-second, the door had been open wide. Beyond the landing, there had been a low clothesline drooping over the stairs. Something had moved there. Not wind. Wind doesn't live underground. Something hung there limp like wet laundry. Dark shapes with sleeves. In my rearview mirror, the service door slowly settled back against its frame. The light from the hallway shrank to a sliver, then disappeared. The hiss faded as if someone had turned a valve. I drove back to the shop and told Cass enough to make her swallow hard and stop smiling. We ran the receipt number twice. It was Evan's, his last. The tip amount matched what Northside had paid out for unrecovered products. The address matched the address his sister had posted on Facebook that night, asking if anyone had seen his car. Before I clocked out, I went into the walk-in to cool my face and found the old rack of polos. Evan's name patch was missing. There was an empty plastic hanger that swayed when I opened the door. Just a fraction. The kind of movement you might not notice if you weren't already listening hard for hissing. I went home, and I didn't sleep. The next afternoon, a kid came in with a folded red shirt he said he'd found by the river snagged on a branch. It was one of ours, stiff with mud, the name patch peeled away by water and time. Cass took it with tongs like it might bite. We don't deliver to Riverside Court anymore. Officially, it's because of repeat fraud. Unofficially, I don't go near the river after dark. The map still shows Unit B if you zoom in just right. If you let the letters blur. If you let the floodplain breathe. If you tilt your phone until the streets run like water. Sometimes, late, my phone will ring once and stop. No voicemail. No number, just unknown. When it happens, I picture a masked door and a pale hand, nails chewed to nothing, offering an envelope that's wet from the inside. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my Civic at a red light, I hear it again. The low, steady hiss of something that lives below the floorboards, patient as a river, waiting for someone to open the door just a crack wider. I've been delivering pizzas in Gray Ridge, Pennsylvania for almost 3 years. It's the kind of town where the main road closes when a deer crosses it, and where the same 10 people seem to order every night. I've seen every kind of customer. Stoners with glowing eyes, tired moms in robes, and old men who hand you exact change like it's sacred. However, the single delivery I completed last winter continues to prevent me from passing by Hillview Street after dark. It was a Sunday night in mid-January, with snow everywhere but the roads still wet and black. The dinner rush had died down, and I was thinking about clocking out early when a ticket printed at 11:26 p.m., large pepperoni, breadsticks, and a 2-liter Coke, paid online. The address, 144 Hillview Street. I frowned. That neighborhood was half empty now. Most of the houses foreclosed or boarded up after the chemical plant closed years back, but a paid order was a paid order. My manager, Mike, raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you want to take that one? That place gives me the creeps." "Yeah, I'll be fine," I said, zipping up my jacket. Last run of the night, he just shrugged. "Keep your phone on." The drive took maybe 10 minutes. My heater was busted, so I was watching my breath fog the windshield. When I turned onto Hillview, the streetlights were flickering like they couldn't make up their minds. Most of the houses were dark except one near the end. A small 2-story place with a single porch light glowing faintly yellow. I parked, grabbed the pizza bag, and started up the icy walkway. Halfway there, I noticed footprints leading to the porch, but none going back. I didn't think much of it until I got closer and saw they weren't fresh. They were half filled with snow. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds passed. Then I heard movement, slow, deliberate steps. The door opened just a crack, and a man's face appeared in the sliver of light. He looked to be in his 40s, pale, with eyes that seemed to avoid mine. "Pizza's here," I said. He nodded once. "Thanks, come inside. It's freezing." Company policy, we don't go inside." His eyes flicked toward the road behind me. "No neighbors out here," he said quietly. "Safer inside." That should have been my cue to leave, but something in his voice didn't sound threatening, just tired. Against my better judgment, I stepped in. The house was dim, lit by a single lamp in the hallway. I could smell damp carpet and something metallic like rust or old pipes. He reached for his wallet from a small table, and I noticed his hands. They shook as he opened it. "How much?" $18.75, I said. He handed me a 20 and smiled faintly. "Keep it." "Thanks." I was about to hand him the pizza when I realized there was more noise, faint music coming from deeper in the house. A woman's voice humming along to some old jazz tune. "You got company?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't answer. He just tilted his head toward the hallway. "She loves music. Always has?" I followed his gaze and saw a shadow move behind a doorway. A woman's outline. She seemed to be swaying gently like she was dancing. I'll just leave this here, I muttered, setting the pizza on a side table. The man nodded again but didn't move. His eyes were still locked on that doorway. It's been years, he whispered. She never eats, but I keep ordering. Habit, I guess. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I asked, even though I didn't want the answer. He looked at me then, really looked, his eyes watery and distant. She died in this house, he said softly. Winter of 2018. The cause of her death was a carbon monoxide leak. I was working late. I still hear her singing when it snows. The humming in the back room grew louder like it was answering him. I took a step back toward the door. Sir, She gets angry if I don't bring something home, he interrupted, voice trembling. She thinks I forget her. The light in the hallway flickered. I caught a clearer glimpse of the woman's silhouette. She was still swaying, but now I could hear the faint squeak of the floorboards. The sound was wrong, too slow, too heavy. Then the humming stopped. Maybe you should go, the man whispered. I didn't need telling twice. I turned for the door and froze. My breath fogged in the air again, but the front door I'd come through was closed tight. I hadn't shut it. Behind me, the man murmured, She doesn't like visitors leaving too soon. I grabbed the doorknob. It was ice cold, and when I twisted it, it wouldn't budge. The hallway light dimmed until the only thing visible was that doorway, and the woman standing in it now. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle. Her hair hung wet across her face, and her skin was gray, almost blue. I couldn't see her eyes, but I knew she was looking at me. Stay, she said in a voice that sounded more like air escaping a vent. The man fell to his knees, covering his ears. I'm sorry, Anna, I brought it this time. I brought it! The temperature dropped so fast my hands went numb. I yanked the door handle again, and it finally gave way with a groan that sounded like a scream. I stumbled outside in the snow, the box of pizza still sitting on the table inside. As I ran to my car, I heard two sounds, the door slamming shut and the faint, broken melody of that same jazz tune playing again, slower this time. When I got back to the shop, Mike was on the phone. He looked at me, confused. Where were you? Hillview Street, I said, panting. 144, he frowned. We don't deliver there anymore. That house burned down last year. I stared at him. No, it didn't. There's a guy living there. He ordered pizza under his name, and I think he said it was Anna. Mike's face went pale. That was his wife's name. The owner's name was Paul Marin. He died last spring. Gas leak, same as his wife. I didn't say anything. I just left, went home, and threw my uniform in the trash. Every winter since, when the first snow hits the windshield, I swear I can hear humming under the wipers. Soft, slow, and somewhere behind me. I've delivered pizzas in the small town of Brookfield, Oregon, for almost a year now. Most nights blur together. Quiet streets, flickering neon, and the smell of melted cheese clinging to my jacket. The only true company I have after midnight is the radio and the steady hum of my engine. But there was one night that didn't fade into routine. It was a night when the rain seemed to be trying to express itself. It was late, 10:45 p.m., when the ticket printer spat out one final order before closing. Medium cheese, no onions, extra sauce. Address 29 Pine Hollow Road, paid online. Name, Rachel Langford. Jess, my manager, looked up from her phone when she saw the address. You're not actually taking that one, are you? I glanced at her. Why not? Her mouth flattened. That place has been empty since last summer. It's the Langford house. You don't remember hearing about it? I shook my head. She sighed. Old farmhouse at the edge of town. The big one, white paint peeling. Husband died in a wreck. Delivery guy for our shop, actually. His wife moved out after everything. Maybe someone else lives there now. Yeah, maybe, she said, but her eyes didn't agree. I laughed it off, grabbed the pizza bag, and headed out into the storm. The rain was relentless, sharp, icy needles hammering the windshield. My wipers moved like metronomes losing rhythm. The streets glistened black, reflecting the occasional glow of a porch light or passing car. When I turned onto Pine Hollow, the world went quiet, except for the rain. No other houses had lights on. Trees loomed on both sides, their branches bending like they were whispering to each other. My GPS hiccuped, froze, then blinked back on just long enough to say, "Arrived." The house stood ahead like it had been expecting me. A tall, sagging frame, half hidden by overgrown hedges with one upstairs light glowing weakly through the rain. I parked by the broken gate and grabbed the pizza. The cold bit into my fingers as I jogged up the path. The porch creaked underfoot. The door had flaking blue paint, and the knocker was rusted into a frown. I knocked twice. No answer. I tried again, louder this time. Then, faintly from inside, a woman's voice, soft and flat. "Come in. It's open." My gut said don't. But the rain was pounding so hard I could barely hear my thoughts. I pushed the door gently. It swung open with a sigh. The air smelled of wet dust and something faintly sweet like old perfume mixed with rot. Boxes lined the hallway, some sealed, some half open, full of faded linens and cracked picture frames. "Hello?" I called. "Pizza delivery." "In the kitchen, please," the voice replied. The sound came from deeper inside. I followed. The narrow hallway, passing portraits that looked like they belonged in a museum, faces with hollow eyes and stiff collars, staring too intently. The wallpaper peeled like old skin. The kitchen light was on. A woman stood with her back to me, hair tied up loosely, gray sweater hanging from her shoulders. She didn't turn when I entered. "Just leave it on the counter," she said. I set the box down. "That'll be $17.45. "There's an envelope on the fridge," she murmured. I spotted it, taped neatly to the door. Inside, a crisp 20. "Thanks," I said, trying to sound normal. "You just moved in?" She hesitated. "Yes, it's quieter now." Her voice had that hollow quality, like someone who hadn't spoken to another person in a long time. "Well, welcome to Brookfield," I offered. She didn't respond. She was staring out the window above the sink, where rain traced slow lines down the glass. "He loved pizza," she said finally. "Every Friday." I nodded slowly. "Your husband?" Her smile was thin and trembling. "He always called me when he was on his way home. Said, 'Don't wait up, Rach. I'll bring the dinner.'" Something about the way she said bring made me uneasy. Before I could think of a reply, a car door slammed outside. The sound cut through the rain like a crack of thunder. The woman stiffened. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's here." My pulse spiked. "Who's here?" She turned toward me, eyes wide now, pale in the light. "You need to go, please, right now." "Ma'am, if you're in danger, I can—" "Go!" she snapped, voice shaking. "He doesn't like visitors." The doorknob rattled down the hall. Someone heavily stepped onto the porch. I froze. Another rattle. Then the door creaked open. The same wet air I'd walked through rushed inside. The woman backed into the corner, whispering to herself, "Not tonight. Not again." A man's voice followed, low and raw. "Rachel." The hallway bulb flickered once. His footsteps dragged slowly toward us. When he stepped into the light, my breath caught. He wore a soaked pizza uniform, our uniform, but older, faded, and torn at the collar. His hair was plastered to his forehead, skin pale and glistening. Mud streaked his hands. "Eric," the woman whispered, "you can't be here." "You ordered again," he said, smiling weakly. "You keep ordering, Rach." He looked right at me then. His pupils were blown wide, reflecting the yellow light like glass marbles. "New driver?" I took a step back. I just delivered, I didn't—" "She always forgets to tip," he interrupted, that smile twitching. "But I don't mind. Keeps me coming back." Rachel shook her head violently. "You died, Eric. You died on this road. You never came home." He tilted his head, Water dripped from his hair onto the floor. Didn't I? The kitchen lights dimmed to a faint pulse. The sound of the rain outside grew louder, like it was pressing against the walls. I couldn't move. Eric took another step forward. I still had one last delivery to make. Rachel screamed, a sound half sob, half breath. "Leave him alone." He turned to her. "You let me drive that night. You told me to go out. You said you'd wait up." She was crying now, shaking uncontrollably. "I didn't know, Eric. I didn't know the bridge was flooded." The man's expression twisted, grief, anger, and confusion all at once. Then he looked back at me, his voice quieter. "You shouldn't have come here. It's not Friday yet." I bolted. Through the hallway, past the portraits, straight out the open door into the freezing rain. The wind cut like knives. I didn't stop until I was in my car, drenched and gasping. When I looked up, the house lights had gone out completely. Only the upstairs window glowed faintly now, flickering like candlelight. I floored it back to the shop. Jess was mopping the floor when I burst in, dripping. She jumped. "Jesus, what happened to you?" "There's someone in that house," I panted. A man in a pizza uniform. Looked like he'd been drowned. Her face went blank. "You said 29 Pine Hollow?" "Yeah." She swallowed hard. "That was Eric Langford's address. He worked here for 5 years. Died last July in a car wreck during a delivery." My throat went dry. He said his name was Eric." Jess stared like she wanted to disbelieve me. "After he died, Rachel kept calling in every Friday. Same order, same time. She stopped after we told her the system wouldn't take her card anymore. But the orders," she hesitated. "They kept printing for a few weeks. No payments, no phone number, just the address." Before I could respond, the receipt printer behind her came alive. Psst! A new ticket slid out. Jess froze before pulling it free. Her hands trembled as she read it. "Medium cheese, no onions, extra sauce. Customer, Rachel Langford. Delivery time, Friday 11 p.m. Driver, my name." Jess looked up, eyes wide. "You didn't type this in, right?" I shook my head. The front window rattled under a sudden gust of rain. And then, soft but clear, we both heard it. A car door shutting outside, followed by slow, wet footsteps on the back stairs leading up to the shop's delivery door. Jess whispered, "No one else is scheduled tonight." I didn't move. The footsteps reached the landing. The knob turned once, stopped. Then came a faint, polite knock. 3 raps, even. Patient. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. A new notification. Delivery confirmed. 29 Pine Hollow Ard. The receipt printer whirred again, spitting out one last line of text. "Don't wait up, Rach, I'll bring the dinner." The lights flickered once. The knocking stopped, but the rain kept whispering against the glass. Steady, endless, like someone breathing through the walls, waiting for the next order.